Thank you for joining us tonight. I hereby call to order this Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting of Warren Township High School District 121 for Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. The time is 6:35. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Pope.
Here.
Martinez.
Here.
Squires. Fields, absent. Carlson.
Here's Fields.
DeMonte.
Here.
Anderson. He's not here yet.
Fields again.
Call Fields.
Fields.
Here comes John. He's walking in. Give him a second.
Yeah, we'll wait a second.
Anderson.
Here. Nice.
All
Happy New Year, everybody.
Susan.
Susan's absent.
Okay. Have a seat.
I don't know how I thought it was at 7:30, but guess it's old age.
All right. We're going to move on to the pledge. So let's, should have told you that before you sat down. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next is the approval of the agenda as a whole, as well as if there are any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda for a separate vote. Now would be the time to amend the agenda. Does anyone have anything to amend? All right. If not, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. All right. Roll call vote, please. Oh,
Anderson.
yeah.
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Pope.
Yes.
Carlson. Martinez.
Yes.
DeMonte.
You meant to.
Yes.
Motion carries.
No, I'm good. The agenda and the consent agenda, I was just doing it all together.
Roger.
All right, so we're moving on to public comment. Lisa, do you know if anyone signed in?
Let me go double check.
Great, thank you. Which of course doesn't stop anyone from providing public comment if you did not sign in. No one signed in. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address the board tonight? Okay. Moving on. Now we're on to the consent agenda, of which we had no changes. So I move to approve the consent agenda. Items which include personnel recommendations, Exhibit A, minutes of the executive session and regular session Board of Education meeting, December 16th, 2025, and payment of bills dated January 6, 2026 in the amount of $674,964.30. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Fields.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Pope.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
DeMonte.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Because it's in the agenda, I'm just going to move for us to move into the committee of the whole part, even though our whole meeting is committee of the whole. So, but seeing that it's here, I move for the Warren Township High School Board of Education to move to the committee of the whole for the purpose of this section of the meeting. And looks like we can do a voice vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so motion passes, and we are going to turn it over to Dr. Weisman. And just a reminder for the Board of Education, we have these committee of the whole meetings to discuss different areas that may need our input. So goal is not always to get out of the meeting as fast as possible, although we all enjoy our home lives. But discussion and transparency of the discussions to get to how we derive at decisions and for us to get our questions answered in a public forum. So, Dr. Weisman.
Great. Appreciate that. We got 5 items on here that we're going to talk about tonight. All of these connect to our strategic plan. That's part of what we've been trying to use the committee of the whole meetings for. So we have an item on that connects to our social emotional well-being pillar, our academic excellence pillar. We don't often, as often talk about strategic plan and modern facilities and financial stewardship, but there are some items on here that are part of that. Sorry. We also, so a handful of these are directly referenced in our annual improvement plan on a page. We're going to reference some work on restorative practices today. We're going to talk about instructional rounds and how that impacts our professional development and staff training. We should be getting metrics here in the next week or two that we can give you at the next board meeting for first semester attendance, discipline, professional development, quality. We've got some of that today, but we'll be able to finalize and update that for the next board meeting. So again, trying to make sure that we're keeping our conversations connected to the strategic plan. Over the next month or two, I'm going to start showing you ideas and concepts and priorities that staff are starting to give me as we go through our improvement cycle. So some of this also hopefully is providing some grounding and context for when I'm asking you for feedback for the upcoming year. Before the break, I did a feedback session that staff were invited to at both campuses to help me digest and understand our annual employee engagement survey. And then yesterday, I did a prioritization and brainstorming process with our PLT leaders. I'll do a similar process with administrators and with lead teachers coming up, and that helps identify where people at all different levels of the organization think we should be prioritizing. So when I do that process, like yesterday with the PLT leaders, I start by having them look. We spend about 15 minutes going through the strategic plan, going through the plan on a page, before they then start to dialogue and memorialize out specific things that they think we should be improving on, just to try to ground everybody. So with that, I'm going to kick off into staffing and enrollment. This is a little bit of an update and has to do with the finances of the school district. So I'm going to do a little bit of just walking through the data, some historical data, as well as kind of current state. And as we get into just budgeting conversations, hopefully this gives you some context and I can answer any questions, or you can come up with questions. We can go back and try to find those. So here are historically, I think, approvals that you've given us to add staff for since the referendum. I think this is a point of celebration. We've been able to add 2 general math teachers since the referendum, 5 student and family support people. These are a couple psychologists, a couple attendance liaisons, a family liaison. We've also been able to add 2 bilingual counselors. I've got those listed in the next category under multilingual support, along with English language teachers, a multilingual director, and then we've been able to allocate parts of teacher workloads to have multilingual lead teacher full positions, which we didn't have. That was a department that didn't have lead teachers prior to the referendum. The board has approved a lot of resources into instructional support around lunchtime interventions. So up there we have in parentheses 5.2. These are 5.2. We call them FTEs, or full-time equivalents, because it's not actually 5 people. It's probably like 20 people that are each giving a portion of their day and the assignment to provide those interventions during our lunchtime. And similar idea with instructional coaches. We had some a small allocation of instructional coaching that happened before the referendum, but are now able, we've got 2 teachers at each campus that some of their day is instructional coaching, which is really meeting with teachers and wrapping around groups of teachers as they set goals and try to improve their practice aligned with the evaluation cycle. For district operations and safety, I separated that out 14 plus 3 because we had security, so I don't know if those count as fully added positions, but being able to bring them in-house, I think, has been a major improvement, as well as adding a school resource officer and 2 maintenance staff. And then we have an activities director to help with our activities and athletics department. So I think that I think that's a point of celebration And that'll show up here in some of the numbers. So I looked at, just to provide some context, I brought in 12 other high school districts to use as peer comparisons. The 12 up here include the 9 high school districts in Lake County, as well as 3 of the larger high school districts in northern Illinois, 155, 214, and 211. So you're going to see some comps slides up here around staffing, and that's who we're comparing ourselves against. You're also going to see the state average for these. So the first one we're going to look at is pupil to certified staff ratio, or student to certified staff ratio. Pupil is the term that the state uses. Certified staff includes classroom teachers, but it would also include like counselors, social workers, school psychologists. It also includes a lot of administrators. So if an administrator came from the classroom, they're probably considered a certified administrator. We do have some administrators that aren't certified. Oftentimes in a school district, the maintenance director is considered administrator but not certified. So we are on the higher end here with our pupil to certified staff ratio, but it's significantly better than where we were before the referendum. And you can see if we had kept that pre-referendum number, we would be kind of off the chart here on that ratio. I think this is a celebration. Our student to teacher ratio is right in the middle of the pack, which I think is a big celebration. Before the referendum, we were just over 20, which would have put us still on the chart, but over there at a pretty high student to teacher ratio. Our student to counselor ratio is around the middle of the pack, and our student to social worker ratio is around the middle of the pack. That's generally, although not formally, I think that's generally the impression that I've gotten from the school board, is a lot of times when we're trying to compare ourselves to school districts around us, we should at least take into consideration what would it take for us to be in the middle of the pack with some of these financial decisions. Our student to administrator ratio is still pretty high. It's a lot better than it was prior to the referendum. So we would have been there leading the pack on the right pre-referendum. And so I do think that if I go back to the student to certified staff ratio, probably part of the reason that's on the higher end is because our student to administrator ratio is also on the higher end. Most of our staff would fall under that teacher category, and that's kind of in the middle of the pack. So just some things to take into consideration as we're thinking about staffing and staffing decisions. But again, much better than we were prior to the referendum. I think it's good for the board to reflect on that and recognize the improvements that they've made and tried to prioritize here recently. I'm just looking ahead to make sure I'm looking at the right slides. So then one more slide I want to throw up on enrollment and staffing is, these are just some projections. I'm going to talk through this. That top line, historical, where it says student population, that's where our student population has been according to the state report card. I'm going to just don't pay attention to the projected yet. The student population change is what we've actually experienced as a population change according to the report card. The demographer projection then starts in 2023, and which is when we got his projection, and does a couple years there. And then you can see that fifth line is the student to certified staff ratio. So you can see that has slowly decreased over the years. So when we get into the projected numbers on the right, then the student population line on the top is the difference in our current student population using the projected population change from the demographer projection. So the fourth line is the demographer projection. The third line is the difference. What the demographer says, hey, we're going to go down 71 year over year. So I took that 71 off of 3394 to get 3323. So I'm trying to combine in that second, or that projected student population line. I'm taking our current status and applying what the demographer projected change was.
Is that census or population of the feeder schools?
It's a little bit of both. Yeah, he does. Those are the two primary resources that he uses. I can resend this, but in the past maybe once or twice a year I resend out that demographer projection, and he has 3 scenarios. He has a kind of a base scenario, and then he says, hey, well, if population decreases a little less than I thought, or if population decreases a little bit more than I thought. And we're a little bit larger. We've lost less students than he thought we would, basically every year from the very beginning. The trend is similar to what he shows. It's just taking us a little bit longer to get there. It does look, and I think recently I provided, if I didn't, I can re-provide it. Woodland just got a demographer report. So their demographer, I think they got theirs in the spring. It does show that they're going to continue for a few more years decline in their enrollment, specifically their 6th through 8th grade. But then it seems to likely plateau. So I think probably that's what we're going to see, is we're going to see another 3 years or so-ish of some declining enrollment. And then it'll go up and down a little bit every year. It might be a good idea in the next couple years to do another demographer report, just as we get to the end of that plateau. So what I did on the projected line here for student certified staff ratio is I said, hey, what if we like our 11 ratio right now, 11 students for every certified staff member, what would it look like to keep that? We would need to decrease over the next 5 years by 24 staff members, and we have retirements, certified staff retirements that cover that, and may have more. Sometimes the retirements come in there for 2030 that we don't know about yet, possibly. So generally our goal here is to, as much as possible when we have retirements, to try to capture that retirement and, if possible, hold on to that position, and then we can decrease over the coming years through attrition would be the way that I would probably approach that. The difficulties with that usually come because the retirements don't always line up to your staffing needs. So for example, if in 2027 all 16 of the retirements were or let's say half of them were deans, we couldn't just like cut our dean population by that much. Or if half of them were in the PE department, we couldn't just cover that. But generally the hope is that over the years that will equal out, and we should be able to keep that 11 ratio just through attrition. I'm just sharing right now for staffing and enrollment, that trying to make sure you understand where we're at as we make budget and programming decisions moving forward without having to make a decision today. What types of questions do you guys have that we could talk about today or try to get back to you in the future?
Well, this was super helpful. So thank you. I really appreciated you pulling this together. Projected certified staff change. That is based on, you have retirements underneath that, so help me. I thought I understood it, but then you said something, so I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, the projected certified staff change is how many we would need to change, either decreasing staff or increasing staff, in order to keep that
The
11 ratio.
Okay, so that's not an expected change in
Correct.
staff.
The expected.
I think that
yeah,
that's
correct.
what, okay.
I probably could have worded that differently.
I
That's what
see
I'm
now.
trying to do with
Yeah,
that.
that's why I thought I understood it, but now I'm getting it now. Okay.
With the staff that's retiring, say it's 2 math teachers, we want to replace one, we would just knock off the 2 and not replace any? Or am I reading it wrong?
We probably won't be able to just say, hey, if 2 people are retiring, let's not fill those positions. But if there is, for example, a math teacher retiring, we'll go back to sectioning and try to see if we can, with just the number of classes that students sign up for, if we can just capture that position. And by capture, I mean not backfill it. I think your scenario is a good example. When there's multiple people in a specific department retiring, you end up having to fill a lot of times one or more of those positions. If it's just one person in a department, it makes it a little bit easier. Also, smaller departments are harder to not fill. Like our elective departments are a little bit more difficult because there's just not as many of them. As the population decreases, generally you can expect that the amount of classes you offer in your core, like English, science, social studies, math, and PE, the amount of classes in those 4 areas will decrease, but your electives might actually not decrease in the number of classes that we're offering.
Obviously, the numbers wouldn't flow exactly like that for the reasons we've already discussed, but I think that's, keeping the number at 11 seems reasonable. I don't know if there's a reason. The fact that it's better, it certainly is something to be happy about, that's for sure.
One thing that comes to mind when I see this is if we achieve the goal of bringing back special ed programming into the district, which typically has lower ratios, so that might skew some of this. So the 11 is a good goal because you have to have something, but then taking a look at those departments or programs, and maybe some need a slightly less student to teacher ratio, and there might be others that could counterbalance that. But feels to me, just thinking about that we may need to look at it, and I know you would, a little more closely as programs come back in, or as we talk about other programs expansion. Otherwise, I agree with John. I don't know, this makes sense. You gotta proportionally adapt to how many students we're serving.
Okay, I'm going to keep leading us through here. Shared services is really a placeholder to, for any discussion that you'd like to have. We have the second shared services committee happening in February, I think. You've seen the minutes. If you want to provide, this is just a placeholder for you to give Beth and Natalia any direction, or if you want to have any conversation about things that you would hope could be discussed at that meeting.
I don't know.
She's got it all up here, don't worry.
There's an agenda, there may not be an agenda yet, I'm saying there should be, I don't know, I don't know if there's any specifics that are, maybe I missed all this.
You know, the first meeting, we kind of worked on structure a little bit and some broader ideas. I'm trying to remember if we decided on an exact topic, but we
Everyone
had
was gonna
some-
come up with 3 and bring it
Yeah.
back to the table, and then we were gonna
We
create
didn't decide
our
on
group from
anything,
that and
right.
move forward.
Some
If
of the
I recall
topic,
it
yeah,
correctly.
some of the topics that generally seemed like there was consensus around was safety, transition, parent communication, purchasing possibilities.
Staffing, sharing staffing for hard to fill positions.
Our mic's just, oh, they're working, sorry. What
We
did
talked
talk
about something recently, it came up, and you and I, we were in a board meeting and something came up, I'm trying to remember it, I'll have to review the minutes, or the recordings. I thought we talked about something and said there would be a good shared services, something came up and I don't.
We've talked about HR recruiting.
Yeah.
So, if needed, like, we need to get into a mindset of recruiting, not just hiring. And we have the ability, if we pool and to offer a variety of different positions, some possibly shared, like, you know, partial at one district, partial here, to make a whole position that maybe neither of us or any of us have a reason to have a full. So there's that.
Like a speech pathologist or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, hard to fill positions and or ones that we only need a portion of a day. So like if we only needed a 0.25 FTE, we can, I mean, there's very few people that want to come and only work, you know, that, so hard to fill positions.
And special
partial
ed was also
positions.
discussed.
Absolutely. If we're bringing back programming, then maybe there's opportunity there to share in staffing or share in programs, or I would imagine there's some facility implications when we continue to have a enrollment that drops. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's space for programming that historically the other districts, let's say middle school, for instance, that they would send kids out for, but there might be a better transition plan or, I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out
Yeah.
there.
I think also maybe, Tony, what was your presentation on at Triple I?
Yeah, I mean, it was exactly this topic,
Yeah,
so,
I think that's what the top conversation
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, there's something specific. I'll look through.
well,
video.
libraries, so there's
I
that,
think that was it.
both externally and internally. I think there's opportunity there. You know, was that it?
Yep, I couldn't remember. Yep.
Are we using the same software as them, like Skyward or whatever it is? I
You,
don't know if they're using the same stuff,
Well,
but they are, they're.
No, they're not.
56 uses Skyward. I don't know what one uses.
That was discussed too, some of the platforms.
Yep.
You know, keeping parents kind of in gear throughout the continuum of school, so.
The transition kind of stuff interests me a little bit as you go and talk during the committee, because there's relationships that are built at the elementary levels that we could bridge to the high school, whether it's EL services or our BPAC teams, or maybe, I don't know. I think there's, it's not just only share in hard to fill or portional positions, but it could be an opportunity to bridge something.
Well,
as
Woodland
well.
talked about, they have an event, like some university, something event.
Parent university.
Yeah, Parent University, and we
at
talked
Woodland.
about maybe including the high school and 56 into that same event and making it bigger and, you know, offering a couple more things and making it more of a community-wide university program versus just Woodland.
Yeah, you could.
Steve, can you talk into the mic so the
You
YouTubers
guys
can
get
hear us?
pretty heavy, but last year, and I'm sure this year, there'll be snowstorms. Is there any thought about if one closes, all closed, or some kind of a notice go out to everybody coordinating?
Yeah, we
that's a
have,
good idea.
we have been approaching it that way. And generally that means, to be honest, that we're probably deferring to the two elementary school districts. 'Cause they gotta think about little kids and little kids out waiting for buses. You think about them a little bit or walking to school, you think about them a little differently than you do 16-year-olds walking to school or taking the bus, so.
But I mean, one announcement from all? If I got a kid in high school and a kid in elementary, and I'm waiting for two announcements, and can I go to work or not, or whatever the case may be, I just,
Oh,
whoa.
interesting. I see what
It
you're
just
saying.
seems to me it would be useful. I know that's kind of down and dirty compared to what you were talking about, but
Good.
Well, that goes to the conversation, the brief conversation we had about communications, right? Like, if we're communicating one, is there a platform that we could use for all
Yeah, right.
three schools?
for anything that's in common, you
Right.
know, or some sort of
Anything that's in
disaster
common.
or whatever it is.
Versus you're getting, the right arrow from.
Yeah, right.
From Warren, then 56, then Woodland, and then you're also getting the separate, social media posts.
And 2 out of the 3 districts have local, like, communications, staff, and 1 doesn't. So that's another thing we kind of discussed too. So, yep, there's a lot of potential. It'll just be a matter of narrowing it down and picking your battles at this point probably, but
Go with that low-hanging fruit first. Stuff that's.
Yeah, the 3 supers do a phone tree, and, okay, let's close.
They're doing that now.
Okay,
I think,
Of course, part of the problem with that too is the closure information might not be exactly the same coming out of each district.
Right.
There may be different parameters that need to be addressed, so. but-
After-school programming or, yeah.
I hope, I feel like some of what you'll see as we just keep talking about this is you'll see little things start to creep into the way that we operate. So for example, when we invited recent high school graduates to come out to Institute Day yesterday and meet with Maricela, we invited the feeder elementaries in the Park District, and they came because the Park District has early childhood programming in the community. So hopefully we can just get better at systemically including people and things. Like the Parent University would be something where it's not like a new program, but just getting involved,
Broader.
more broad involvement would help.
Collaborating together.
But if anyone has any ideas, just email us, so we can kind of catalog them and keep them. That goes.
Our districts that share business offices, nobody I know, but
No, we don't. My school, we share, it's just the district office and the admins that are shared. But
Okay.
you're still working for 2 boards, 4 contracts. I mean, it's still 2 separate entities, except you have a group of like 15 people
Sharing a
servicing-
space.
Sharing a space and servicing both at the same time. You understand? And then with, when we've talked about the positions, you would have to decide which of the district's gonna take on the contract. And how are the other 2 schools going to divide to pay you?
So you have
Right, 'cause-
employees working in the same room with different contracts, doing similar
Yeah,
work.
so like in my office, half of us are one district and the other half are the other district.
Following different calendars. Mm-hmm. Simple. Check it off.
I think there might be, as you're eliciting ideas from people, it should be based probably operationally on pain points and just where we've tended to struggle, which is probably stuff that we're not aware of, but they're aware of, to try to solve common problems as a start. Discussion about condensing or melding will never come from any district office that we're talking about. I think that's going to come from us in the community. If we see it as a value, maybe not. I probably initially that's not the goal. The goal is to help solve some issues, share in some savings. I don't specifically really know, but there might be like superintendents may go back and say, like HR is kind of the main one, I think, to solve as
Transportation.
there's,
HR.
people, like quality
Yeah.
people are
Mhm.
becoming harder and harder to find, and there's fewer people going into the field of education. So that might be one we want to get a little ahead of. I know we're not at an issue yet, but we could be. Back for you too.
Yeah. Again, if you think of something on the ride home, email, Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate your conversation about that. I'm going to throw the time over to Chris Giocaris to talk about instructional rounding and PD.
So just providing an update because a couple of our goals in our plan on a page for this year involve specifically instructional rounding and continuing to work to improve our professional development delivery. So starting with improving our professional development, so just wanted to provide some context that we really have 3 different venues that we use to provide professional development for staff. So our Institute Days, we have the 2 at the beginning of the year, 1 in October, 1 in January, 1 in March. Those are usually led by WTHS staff. Sometimes we're able to bring in outside presenters. They're district-wide. We have a committee made up of administrators and teachers to help plan those days. The next 2 are actually tied into our Wednesday late start. So every Wednesday is a late start. A lot of those are PLT meetings where our teachers are working together in curriculum teams to plan curriculum, reflect on data and student performance. But the other ones are used to either provide building-wide professional development, which is led by coaches and administrators, or instructional coaches and administrators, or they're in their departments working on curriculum-based professional development. Those are led and planned by our lead teachers, and usually are led by either the lead teachers themselves, teachers in the department, sometimes they're instructional coaches, or we bring in outside presenters that are experts in that particular content area. So as we've gone through the year, this fall, we collected staff feedback on our professional development. How are we doing? What would staff like to see? Staff really value that curriculum-based professional development time. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the rounding, but that is probably right now, if you were to ask me where we're getting the most mileage in our professional development, it's out of that curriculum-based professional development. So that the staff value that very much. They still are looking for more training choices aligned to their roles and professional needs. So for example, what came up a lot of staff feedback was like paraprofessionals would like more paraprofessional training or training designed specifically for paraprofessionals. Teachers want more things that they can see directly apply to their daily work in the classroom, and just looking for more, for us to provide more of those types of training choices. So on an institute day, they've got options that are, that they can choose between to see what best suits their needs. They do appreciate the balance between having internal and external presenters. So people learning from their colleagues, they really value hearing from what their peers are doing, but also every once in a while bringing in somebody from outside to learn what are national experts, what's the national conversation around education. And another theme that came out of that feedback was we want to continue to find ways to improve that cross-campus articulation. So when we have opportunities for professional development, how are we able to build in more time for teachers from Oak Plain to talk with teachers at Almond about what we're learning or what we're doing in the classroom? So those were the four kind of key feedbacks around professional development. The good news is our goal for a 3.5 out of 4 for our professional development rating. Through December, we were at a 3.6 for the year. So it's great work by all the people that are doing a lot of planning and a lot of work to make all of this happen. So I think over the last couple of years, as we put more and more time and effort and more people tied into this, we've really seen an improvement from the quality and how the staff perceive the quality of the professional development.
Jump in here, Chris. So a couple years ago, those ratings that we do after each session averaged a 3.1. So last year we were at a 3.7. This year so far we're at a 3.6. I want to celebrate all the people also that are part of that. This is an example of this strategy has been on our plan on a page for a few years now. We might consider taking that off for next year because we've had a couple years where we've been able to keep it at a high level because of the good work happening.
Question. Curriculum-based professional development. I'm a history teacher. Give me an example. What would you?
So when we talk about curriculum-based PD, that could be, if you're a social studies teacher, there might be a instructional strategy that might be specific to social studies that the lead teachers want all of their teachers to be utilizing, right, in their social studies classes. So that would be a curriculum-based PD would be give us time, dedicated time to work with teachers to train them on how to use that strategy, give them time to implement over the course of, 6 to 8 weeks between curriculum-based PD sessions, follow back up, and then keep working on that throughout the year. So it's an opportunity to do things that are specific to instructional strategies in your department. Sometimes curriculum-based PD, if we have a brand new curriculum that we're bringing in, it's giving dedicated time to have teachers learn the resources that come with that curriculum, because a lot of times now you have a brand new textbook, you have all of these resources that come with it, but teachers need time to continue to learn how to use the different aspects that come with it, especially as they move through the curriculum throughout the year. So we're building in that time. We're giving the lead teachers actually put together an annual plan with the assistant principals over the summer. So when they come in for the year, they have their sequence of events laid out. If those lead teachers want outside presenters to help support them in that work, they bring them in. We've had the presenters come in to work on differentiation strategies, reading strategies. We had a business outside business teacher come in and talk about how to build like entrepreneurship and other different aspects of our business program as well.
I'm interpreting that to mean when something new comes down the pike, you're teaching people how to use it. Do you have resistance from old people like me?
No, that's actually one of the things that people really value is because when you do a lot of training on professional development, a lot of times when we do institute days, they're very broad topics, right? And they're new ideas and sometimes, yeah, and there's
You're not
some-
forcing anybody to do it a new way, you're just kind of teaching them.
You're teaching, but these are things that we're saying, like, these are good practices. These are practices that we should be using. So since we say this is important for us to do, we're going to dedicate time for us to learn how to do this and improve at doing this.
How do you select the external professionals to come in?
So the lead teachers do that work. So a lot of times they work through like their own research, references from colleagues at other schools, the people that are doing things that we're trying to do but have already implemented and have learned from that. And those are the types of people that have come in to present. We've had national experts in here to present.
Sometimes
some
people go
college
to a national
professors.
conference and see a speaker, and then they'll get excited about it and ask them to come in.
Yeah, I think an example where it wasn't an outside presenter, but we had some teachers that went to, some math teachers that went to a math conference to learn about building thinking classrooms, which is a different way of teaching math. They came back, they actually did a book study in that, on the first semester with a group of key teachers that were wanted to implement right away. They did a book study, and then last year their curriculum-based professional development in the math department was all year long was focused on building thinking classrooms, and those people that did that initial work helped lead that professional development.
Building thinking classrooms as an example of, like, maybe to bring it into Steve's question too, it's specific to math. The new approaches that the kids are up on the wall using whiteboards for a lot of the class. You wouldn't do that necessarily for like an English classroom that's doing writing in the same way, but for math, that specific strategy of getting them out of their seats, up on the walls, doing practice problems in groups works really well for a math group. So it's a little bit new for them. It's a new idea. They do the book study, and it's something that only the math department is doing.
So, said you might take it off the plan on the page, but I would hope that we would continue the process. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't be a focus, or it wouldn't be on the page, but we don't want to lose the focus
Correct.
on that. We want to continue the
Yeah,
process, so.
exactly.
Sometimes they get off the page and they go, okay, I'll put that over here, I'm fine with that, So I don't want that, I don't want it to lose momentum because it comes off the page. I guess that's the best way to say that. I'm sure you'll try, but I mean, maybe it goes back on after a couple of years.
Well, we've developed some annual processes behind all of this in terms of how we plan our professional development focuses for the year. And then the differentiating between like the building-wide focus and the institute days focuses where we have large sections of staff, what we do within the departments, and what lead teachers can plan around and giving them some focus. Then also what's the additional training that we're doing with our leaders to help keep the conversation moving. So while we're working on something with our staff, we might be doing something kind of looking a step or two ahead with our leaders, so we keep everything moving. We do a lot of that work in the spring, coming out of all the feedback sessions and priority sessions.
More feedback sessions, so that'll continue.
So you feel like the structure that has been developed is going to be self-sustaining?
Yes.
Sounds like Wednesdays are building-based and institute days are like district, right? Are there any, like once a month or once every other month, Wednesdays where it's department but whole district department comes together and then you build in travel time to go back to their building?
We don't have that only because there's only about an hour of actual overlap time on a Wednesday morning. So there's not a lot of time to have a lot of cross-campus community. We do have some departments that will schedule that, like they want to get together. We've had departments that have had a speaker come to Almond, then go over to a plane and do it that way, or they'll schedule a meeting together. If it's a virtual meeting, they'll meet together online, something like that, to try and work around that scheduling problem.
Do any of that on institute days? Do the departments ever meet
Departments
together?
will come together on institute days when we have time. It just depends on how that plans out. We did have some joint department time on yesterday on Monday, but we always we try to make sure we have some at the beginning of the year. It's really just a matter of what are we trying to get done that day? How much time can we get to them? We know they value that. We try to get that for them at least, a half hour to an hour of joint department time on those institute days. But based on the feedback, we want to make sure that we're probably doing a little bit better job of that to allow for more cross-campus articulation.
And so I had a question around the curriculum-based PD as well. I know you mentioned that over the summer, the lead teachers come together and plan for the year, which I think is great. What are some of the components that they are looking at to really determine what the focus would be for those sessions?
So they start with, we ask them to determine what's their outcome, right? So where do we want to arrive at? They know they have 4 dates that they have to work with. So then they kind of have a planning template that they're working off of, saying like, this is my goal, this is my instructional goal for our department, and these are the 4 dates, and these are the activities that we're going to do on these 4 days. And then the assistant principals will sit down with them and say, okay, well, if you said this is what you want to do on this day, what is that going to look like? What are you going to do? You need extra support? Do you need any people? Do we need to help find you somebody to come in if you don't have that expertise already in your department? And they start to plan those steps out, and then also asking them, well, in the interim, right, in between day 1 and day 2, which is 6 or 8 weeks later, what steps what are you hoping that will happen, or what are you going to work to make sure is happening in between those 2 days? So that's kind of the structure of the plan.
That makes sense. Are they also looking at student data when they're planning?
Yeah, so a lot of their outcomes are based on like student performance. What do we want? What behaviors or what skills are we seeing lackings? We want to address those skills. That's what's driving a lot of the planning and the decisions that they're making and coming up with their plans. So moving on to instructional rounding. So instructional rounding, just again, starting with some context, it's the purpose of rounding is to have administrators go observe classrooms throughout the district, focusing on one narrow area. So it's not like we're going in to observe a teacher on a full rubric and evaluating a teacher. The easiest way to sum it up is, what does instruction at WTHS look like on any given day? So it's not about how is Danny as a teacher, it's how are we at Warren doing teaching, focusing on this specific aspect of teaching. This year we're focusing on differentiated instruction. That's been our professional development focus all of last year, is again this year. So we wanted to, when we did our rounding process, was we went into classrooms, we wanted to focus on that. So we were using the domain 3E of the framework for teaching, which is responding flexibly to student needs, because in that framework, there's critical components of it. So there's 3 critical components of domain 3E that we were collecting data on as we went in. So one administrator would go visit, would be assigned to 10 or 15 classrooms, would go observe for about 15 minutes. We did that during September and October. They're unannounced, they're not planned. We would usually email the teachers on our list, say, hey, sometime in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to pop in at some point. And you might see kids taking a test, you might see a teacher doing a lesson, you could see any different things, but the idea is it doesn't always have to be like the best lesson ever. We just want, what does practice look like on a daily basis here? So we did that process through September and October, collected that data, we reviewed it by administrators, and we reviewed it with staff during feedback sessions in late October and November. So from the staff, their experiences with rounding this fall, they appreciated the increased presence of administrators in classrooms. Like we were in a lot of classrooms. We'll be doing it again. We'll be in a lot of classrooms again starting here in a couple weeks. And they really appreciated seeing us more in their classrooms, working with students. They did desire more individual feedback and connections with the administrator after visiting a classroom. So one of the things with rounding is it's not necessarily about providing direct specific feedback to that teacher. It's more about just collecting that holistic data, which is really what we focused on, but our staff is saying would be, they would appreciate a little bit more feedback coming directly to them about, hey, what did we see? I know that we all left thank you notes or left them a note. I know when I was in classrooms, I always left a note saying, hey, I really appreciated how you did this. During that 15 minutes that I was with you. They also felt that the Poppin model is a little too brief to truly assess classroom practice. They were saying maybe it could be a little bit longer. From the administrator side, from the leader feedback, they felt that generally quantitative data collected was reflective of what they saw. So when they looked at it holistically, like all the data together, we asked them, does that feel like what you saw? Like, did your experiences match what all the data together suggests? And they felt like that was true, which is good, because then that means that we're observing, we're interpreting, and we're not rating, but we're collecting data appropriately aligned to the rubric and consistently. They observed teachers applying concepts from district professional development, whether that was district-wide PD, whether that was curriculum-based PD. I know from my own personal experiences, when I was in a couple of math classrooms, I saw building thinking classroom instructional strategies used. In some departments that did a lot of work, I know did a lot of work around differentiation specific to their content area and strategies that were specific to their content area. I saw teachers utilizing those strategies consistently across the board. So that was fantastic. And that was what I was saying earlier, like those were two examples of just really seeing a lot of value out of that curriculum-based professional development. Also, leaders are noticing common language from the framework for teaching is emerging amongst our own conversations, but also conversations with teachers, like some of the terminology and things that we're talking about in classrooms about being student-led and engagement, and along those lines, we're seeing a common language emerge throughout the district. And we also identified practices that we want to continue to grow in the district. We saw a lot of great things. And we saw some people doing some great things, maybe in isolation, that were like, wow, that would be awesome if everybody was doing that, or everybody knew that this person was doing that, and we can learn from that person. So there are a lot of positives that came out from that experience. Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you pop in and a teacher's having a bad day, how do you handle that?
It's okay. And so, like, you could go into a classroom, teacher's having a bad day, kids having a bad day. How do we react in that situation? And it's okay. Well, as a side evaluator, if the teacher was sitting there and having a rough time with a kid and say, hey, could you help me out? Of course we would help them out. But generally in a rounding, it's like, it's called rounding because think about like medical rounds. Like, you're kind of a silent observer in that.
Go back another day when they're having a better day?
Not in this, no. This is what it is. And it's not evaluative. It's not if a teacher's having a rough class or the lesson's not going as well as they wanted it to, like, it's okay. Like, that's
reality.
It's reality. Like, we've all
the time.
we've all taught lessons that did not go the way we wanted it to go.
I don't know, everything I did on my job was perfect. All the time.
So it's okay, and it's just but again, like, what's exciting to me is even if you go see somebody and it didn't go great, and like that you know that they're trying something new, like, it's great that they're trying something new. Yes, absolutely.
Before you go to next steps, initially when you said staff feedback, they were asking for more. It sounded like personal feedback on what they did, but then in the staff feedback, you all looked at the data, right? So I'm just curious, the staff do get like the overview, the data back to them
Yes.
too? So they do get a sense of what the overall assessment was, right?
Yes,
Okay,
and I
so
think
just
they
wanna
want.
double-check.
I think they wanted more just things individualized
Sure.
for specific to them. Yes.
Yeah.
As did I do, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So next steps, we are beginning a series of rounding in January. We have a management team meeting coming up next week where we'll just kind of review the protocol with everybody again to make sure we kind of recalibrate before we start the next round. We made a couple adjustments to the process in response to some of the feedback. For example, in the first set of rounds, like, we came in either the first 15, middle 15, or last 15 minutes of class. We're not coming in during the first 15 minutes in this next round because when you observe, as you're looking at the rubric, one of the options is not observed, right? Like, because if you didn't see it, you didn't see it. If there was no evidence of it, we're not going to downgrade a rating or a data collection because we didn't see it. So, but we noticed that in the first 15 minutes of class, when you're getting your class up and running, you're introducing a lot of things, there were more instances of different aspects of differentiation not being observed in that first 15 minutes. So that told us like we should probably just focus our efforts on the middle or the end. So we're looking at that. That's one change that we're going to make. And then some of the bigger changes, we're going to try and figure out how we can continue to improve the process for next year. And we are going to continue to focus on domain 3E, because part of the idea of rounding is like, where are we at the beginning of the year? We continue to do more work with differentiation. So where are we at now is we're, halfway to 2/3 of the way through the school year.
This is probably an example of a strategy that we would strongly consider having on our plan on page again next year. It's new for us. We're seeing some good traction with it, but it's still not baked into our DNA. Like Chris said, we got a review protocol here this month when we hit it again with administrators. So I think we're on a good trend. We might see this again in our next plan on a page.
There was a decent amount of tension with this too. This is a brand new idea with instructional rounding, and like, this isn't about how I am as a math teacher. This is about how are we as a district as teachers, how are we improving in our practice. So it's really, we had a lot of conversations as we started. There's a lot of questions I know Matt and Peter answered, and Rob and Michelle of the buildings, to help people understand what this is. So as we continue to get feedback from staff.
Well, I'm sure that someone thought that, right?
Right, it's, you just want to, we want to be transparent. We want to make sure everybody understands, like, this is the purpose of it. And the data that we do collect isn't about any one person. It's also telling us, okay, well, like we talked about, we identified some strategies to grow, right? So how do we embed those strategies into our plans, formally into our plans for next year, so we have actionable steps coming off of the rounding for this year?
So who's the team that's doing the rounding?
Every administrator in the district. So Danny, Pat, me, we're all in classrooms along with all of our building leaders.
So you mentioned the plan on the page, and as I think of the plan on the page and a lot of the strategies we're looking at in the special ed audit and differentiation and whatever, I am not lost on that this is crossing over many different areas. So yeah, I see this being probably very valuable as we still try to move forward into more of those realms of the special ed. So, I mean, I think this is maybe not just going to remain, but maybe expand, I'm guessing, in ways that we're trying to implement classroom change. So,
To help some of what you mentioned, do you make a conscious effort to not have the administrator who's the evaluator of that staff do the rounding for that staff member?
Yeah, we have
'Cause
talked
that's
about
where
that.
the lines get blurred, but there's enough admin to where I think you could probably assign the non-evaluator to pop in. I wasn't sure if you had done that as a strategy to help with some of that.
I don't think we intentionally did that the first round, but some administrators just made that switch with colleagues on their own. But for the second round, we did make sure, because we don't want to blur that line, right? And it does, and even just in the process itself, putting unease aside, like if I come in, if I'm your evaluator and I come in, am I there for rounding, or am I there because this is your informal, right? Because both of those are unannounced, 15-minute pop-in visits, so it creates some
That would be my first
tension.
question.
Yeah, like, why are you here? What are you
What are
doing?
you doing here?
What's your purpose? So yes, that is something that we are very intentional about now.
Super briefly, how in the world is this any different than walkthroughs from 10 to 15 years ago?
It's not.
Thank you. What's old is new again. In the world of education, it's had a different name. It was called walkthroughs and look-fors and all that kind of stuff. I just know that you stick the rounding term on and attach it to the medical field, and somehow it was reborn again. So I was curious if you had insight into how this is substantially different.
What's different to me about what we did here several years ago, because we did the walkthroughs,
Everyone did.
right? Everybody did that. What's different to me here is the narrow focus of what we're actually going in to observe. It's not like a broad list of things.
Sure.
It's very narrow focus. And then also the sharing of the findings holistically with leaders, with staff members, and then actually taking steps then to say, well, we learned this, what are we going to do with this? Now we're going to go back and we're going to see how did we do with what we learned.
I think the Marzano group like refreshed the name and called it rounding now. Some places are
So a
starting
bunch
to call
of
it
different
something
organizations that now
Yeah.
do instructional rounding. It
Yeah.
is the buzz term. And there's even apps that are designed
Because the
now
medical
for
community
this.
is so great.
Yeah.
We lead.
No, it's good, and I see the differences now that you mention it.
All right, we're gonna keep moving if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, Tier 2 services. So just to going along the line of the educational jargon, when you hear Tier 2, think Tier 1 is just good practices that school provides to all kids. Like any good practice that you have at the school, any kid has access to, that's a Tier 1 program. Tier 2 is when there's not success or a kid is struggling and needs some type of intervention. So that's what Tier 2 is referring to. And typically, you're talking about 5 to 15% of your student population would be in a Tier 2 intervention, typically. So some of the things that we formed a Tier 2 committee, again, thankfully with the referendum, we were able to beef up some of our student services staff, which allowed us to be a little more aggressive with some of the things that we were doing, particularly with interventions. Our student support groups, approximately 60 kids get serviced every 8 weeks or on 8-week cycles. And further down or further on in the slides, you'll see I just put all the list of the different groups that we run. Another thing we did with Classroom Connections at O'Plain, they wanted to make sure the students at O'Plain understood what sense of belonging and engagement meant, because we're looking at that so closely on the Panorama survey to make sure kids understand that. And not only that they understand that, then, but also give them voice. What could we be doing better to help improve in these areas? So I think it was twofold, both educationally and then us, again, getting that direct feedback from students. So I really appreciated the Plain staff doing that. At Almond, they were doing this, they did this today. In fact, I think it's gonna go on tomorrow, but I'm not sure. We're going in and presenting to kids about those groups, just to make sure kids have that understanding about groups that are available to them if they are struggling and maybe they are kind of flying on the radar and no one knows they could potentially benefit from a group practice. And then also get that feedback from kids, or what are some other things that, you know, they notice or they're interested in possibly participating in a group. Increased our outside partnerships. These things have been very successful for us. My Brother's Keeper and Sparkle are two examples of groups that we have an outside organization come in and help us with. This year, there's 24 students at MBK and there are 20 students in Sparkle. Choices is our partnership with the township. Last year it was with the juvenile court system. This year we shifted away from the juvenile court system just because they weren't able to, and don't think we had someone doing court with kids. It's just a program that they have in place through teen court that was very effective, and she's actually a community member, was wonderful. She couldn't provide enough dates for us, so we actually partnered with Adam Krieger in the township to bring someone in. And we call it Choices. And again, it's been great. We've increased our numbers with that, particularly at O'Plains. We've had 6 dates first semester at O'Plain. We've had 5 dates at Almond. It's kind of every other week. That's how we set it up with Adam to see if that would be enough. They like it.
No, how are the kids selected? Or they just, it's like a club, they show up? Or it's a
No,
selection?
this is an intervention. So, for example, a kid makes a very poor choice in a bathroom with some kind of electronic device. We may say, hey, you might face a suspension, but we can reduce that suspension if you also do this programming. And it's a 3-hour
Probation.
programming to make better choices. So it's been super helpful with us, or a kid who's not going to skip the Saturday detention. Okay, now you got to do choices program for 3 hours on one day. What they got the Saturday detention for could be a number of different things.
I flunked Latin and nobody knew until I flunked. Is there like a teacher input to this, or, I mean, how do you?
Student service staff can also put a kid in that. The kid is struggling, or a teacher could recommend it to the dean or a counselor or social worker. And then CYN, that is our drug and alcohol counseling that we have in place. Again, we've been fortunate enough to partner with CYN. They're out of Grays Lake. We have a very nice young lady who comes over and is a licensed social worker that comes over and performs this. She comes once a week, does a half day at Almond, and then does a half day over at O'Plain. Depending on the numbers of the week, she might do a full day at O'Plain and then skip Almond, or a full day at Almond and, then move back to the other campus the following week. So this year we had 71 students, and some of these students aren't just because we caught them doing something. These are kids, sometimes families call and like, hey, my kid needs help. We're not seeing it. We haven't caught the kid doing anything, but they have asked to be in what kind of program we have, and we put them, they've self-referred themselves into it.
71 kids for the almond, to me, sounds like a high number. I would have thought it would have been reversed, because the older you are, the more that, you know, you could be experimenting with versus like the younger aged students. Or, I don't know,
Sometimes
like,
at
what's the
O'Plain, we see the
rationale with that
choices
number
are
being-
not as strong at O'Plain than they are at Almond. So that's part of it, because some of this is kids that have gotten caught on campus. Some of it's self-referral, some of it's a parent that has called, hey, do you have anything that can help my kid? And we get them into the program.
This is repeat, or, I mean, how many people go in and out of this?
These are the total number of students so far this year. And even the repeat, no, none of them are repeat. Now, some of the kids, let's say, looking at O'Plain 71 students, some of those students, they'll have their first session with her as an assessment to see what kind of problem we're dealing with the kid. How bad is this? Is it a problem? Or is it just a poor choice the kid made once and experimented one time? Then they will follow up and have multiple sessions with that particular counselor. It just depends. Some kids go once for the assessment. She's like, I don't think this kid has a problem. I feel good about this kid, just come and see me once. She releases a kid, no further meetings are needed.
So I would kind of differentiate then here that first bullet point, MBK and Sparkle is a leadership development and support program. Those 24 and 20 students are in all year. They're identified by staff.
That's a good point.
Where the choices in the CYN are interventions for students that are struggling with something, and the amount of times they meet is variable depending on
That is
the
correct.
specific need.
Choices, you're not gonna see repeat kid in choices. In CYN, some of those kids might have repeat sessions. It just depends on how the kid does on the assessment.
I'm opposite Natalia. I think there'd be, with 3,500 kids, I think it'd be higher numbers. Just a thought.
You mean in general?
Yeah.
She was talking about the different campuses, but yeah. Is that a limited access, like, or do they have unlimited access?
We've had her in for an extra day.
Yeah.
When there was a couple right between Thanksgiving and the winter break, we had to get an extra half day out of her to make sure all kids got scheduled prior to the break.
And Pat, how many, so of these three that you focused on, did, like prior to the referendum, did we have those programs?
We did not
Just wanna
have
clarify.
choices or CYN at all. We had to kind of outsource that. We'd suggest to families to do it. I mean, you can suggest all you want. You know, it's a matter of when you have services here, it's much more powerful. It's better for our families. It's better for our kids. It's better for us because then we get that type of follow-up with the agency. Choices, were we doing something like choices? Sure we were, but did we have time for a social worker every other week, 3 hours to have kids funnel into something? We did not. So it is super beneficial to us to partner with Adam. Yes, and that's since the referendum as well.
And this is new this year? Or?
Choices, we had a version of it last year. It's very similar, just a different provider.
I guess I'm questioning, at what point can you determine results?
Yeah, if it's effective. That's why I do the attendance for all those groups myself and have the spreadsheets and also check in with those people to see how that's going. So at the end of the year, we'll assess. We didn't know what CYN was going to be, for example, the drug and alcohol. I didn't know how that was going to go. We entered into a partnership with them. We said, hey, a day a week, and we'll see how it goes, half day at each campus. That's how we wanted to start, pretty conservatively, and to see if that was effective or not. At the end of the year, we're going to see. It started the year, she didn't have a lot. Clearly, when you get closer, after the kids get comfortable, they start making some poor choices, and you start seeing numbers tick up. After break, again, kids will be pretty good. They usually make pretty good choices after a nice break. But then when you get into February and March, things do start to happen with kids. Yeah, correct. It just starts to happen every year. It's just how the cycle works. It's not, our kids aren't bad kids. It just happened. They're kids. Like, we all made poor choices when we were kids. So we'll see, and we'll be able to assess. Yeah, except Beth Pope. She's great.
Save them for later.
I saved them for later, yeah.
I think in March, we'll have a better idea, you know, of kind of where we're at. Is this something we want to continue? I would be surprised based on currently how it's going. I would be surprised that we wouldn't,
You're feeling
the
like it's
deans and the
doing
counselors
well.
and social workers would say, yeah, this is probably not something we want to do. Let's look for something else. I would be very surprised. If anything, it would be, hey, can we get another half day? Can we get another session of choices, possibly?
Is that the only partnership with the township you have is with the choices, or isn't there counseling also going on?
We do have an MOU, or not an MOU, maybe it is
Yeah, I
an MOU.
think
I
it is
forget
an
what
MOU.
that
I think we
term
signed
is.
an MOU.
Thank you, intergovernmental agreement with them. So sometimes the township does a great job of counseling services for kids, but clearly their appointments fill up at nighttime because that's when all the kids are trying to see it, because
We're
that's
not
when they're
paying
out of
them at
school.
all?
What Beth's asking me about, we don't pay. They ask, hey, can we come see a kid at school because we can't
Our
fit them in
agreement.
at night? So they'll just send their our social worker over, they'll do it on-site here, and then social worker leaves, kid goes back to class. So we have that agreement, so those kids can get those appointments. That's ebb and flow, it depends, you know, on
Great.
the time of year, but we have a very good relationship with them, and we're happy to support them with that. This is different, we do pay for this.
However, I would say,
It's
really-
very minimal.
no,
I will tell you that.
it's really nice that we're partnering with local resources, because if they're getting benefit out of what's being provided here, there's opportunity to after hours or on your own, or you want to continue on with someone that has really done well for you and
Relationship with?
correct.
Yeah.
So whenever I hear stuff about local entities that our families could also access outside of what they're accessing during the day, I think that's the kind of community connection piece that is pretty exciting.
Yeah, you give them a touch point and.
Yeah,
they're
always
familiar
better
with
to do
them.
local than it is to bring someone in from, let's say, a half hour away that our families would not typically access after hours. So like Adam Krieger and, yeah, I mean, that, they do great short-term counseling.
Yes.
And it's nice to hear.
Yeah, the CMAN, we've had the same social worker. She's wonderful. She's great. She
They've
lives
been there
locally
forever
too.
on 120.
She's great. And township social workers that we have, one just goes to Old Plain. Adam was able to figure it out. And one just comes to Almond to keep it consistent at both campuses. And they're wonderful. I knew one of them prior to this from our Healthy Youth, Healthy Community meetings. So they've been a great partner, and they work very closely with our deans. Our deans really take ownership of this. And there's a great connection. In fact, we developed the curriculum kind of together. So it was really great, and I anticipate it continuing on in a great relationship. This is just some of the support groups. I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of what the different groups they have run. Doesn't mean all 16 are running. It's based on kids' needs, but these are the different groups that we have run, or we hope to run, because we know there's a need for it. It's just a matter of getting kids into it. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what those groups look like. We tried to put it in language that was self-explanatory, but I know there's some educational jargon there that might be confusing to you. It's really not that complicated, but we put it in our language sometimes, and sometimes it's confusing.
And these are the ones that you were going to promote or introduce at Old Plain?
That's what
right?
Almond was
All of-
doing.
All of these?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Old Plain wasn't having wasn't having a hard time getting kids
Oh,
to
I'm
come.
sorry,
and did-
Almond.
So
Yes,
Almond,
thank
they
you.
went out and did an outreach to kids to make sure kids understood what groups were available to try to get more kids to.
Are these on the website?
Yes,
parents?
they're in our MTS's handbook,
Not
what?
necessarily specifically on the website.
in our handbook,
In our handbook.
yes.
Would you be opposed to having it as a resource on our website?
No, the handbook is, but having it separate from the handbook, yeah, our handbook's on the website, but having it separated,
Right, would you be
I'm-
opposed to that?
For parents that might be
I'm not opposed
looking
at all
for
to
it.
that.
Yeah, okay, good.
The access, you know, if someone's looking for something, it's gonna pop up versus like, oh, now I got, you know,
Right.
they're not gonna, I wouldn't know to go to the handbook. I would think that I would just be able to search it within the school website and something would populate.
We also like a brief description. I know most of them seem pretty self-explanatory, but I'd be curious about the boosting attendance and student engagement, like what's happening in that,
Yep.
that group.
He's coming on time.
I'm trying to figure out the difference between goal setting for boys and empower for girls. What does that mean?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Steve.
I'm trying to figure out the difference between goal setting and only for boys and empower only for girls, and why, and what does that mean?
They're very similar groups, but we're just putting them by gender. Sometimes,
But I'm just trying to figure
Yeah.
out is there a
They're
difference?
very similar outcomes of those groups.
Okay.
Just sometimes kids feel more comfortable, gender specific, and sometimes we're seeing certain things with girls or with boys, what's going on, and sometimes it's more powerful to have them separated in a
Oh,
group.
sure, obviously, but I'm just trying to,
They're the same,
why the,
Yeah,
basically the same.
why the terminology?
Pat, are there differences in what's offered between the two campuses?
no, and it's always based on student need. But these are the groups that we have curriculum for, we have surveys for, we look at the effectiveness of. This is what we have in place. Obviously, as years go, it'll continue to grow. Or if something doesn't run for a couple of years, okay, well maybe this isn't something that's needed.
How many weeks or?
8 weeks.
8 each?
Mhm.
Okay.
8-week sessions.
Are there any outside resources that can help with this? I'm thinking the health department, for example, or I don't know, the state or the county or anybody? Anybody? I'm sure the health department, that's my previous life, has programs for teens and kids and all this sort of thing, and I just wonder if there was any interaction.
The only time I have interaction with the health department, and sometimes they're at our healthy, well, they used to be at it a lot
Cafeteria.
more at the healthy youth, healthy community meetings when, what was her name? She was a community member. Her kids went through her. I can't remember her name. She was at every meeting, and
No, I can visualize.
you know who I'm
but I
talking
can't-
about?
I can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember
It was
her
a
name.
very
right now.
active group.
Extremely active, and then she went to Kenosha, I think. And I was able to get a lot of resources just in general to share with our social workers, and some of our social workers would come to that meeting with me, and so there was a lot of connection there.
But that's gone?
Yeah, I can't speak to whether they're showing up at that meeting or
I
not.
recently heard, just as an FYI, Allendale is starting to do more like group work and stuff, so that might be something you might want to touch base with. I know they're doing some promotional stuff outside of their office, the Bradley Counseling Center. So I don't know if that's something you might want to take a look at, but I know that they're starting to think outside a little bit.
The township does a lot of this work.
Yeah, I know.
Which
Yeah,
our
you've got a
social
neighbor, a
workers-
great neighbor.
Adam is
So-
very tied into our social workers,
Yeah.
and so he does a great job making sure we're very aware of what programs are available to our kids in the community. So we're very dialed in with the township.
So who's running these programs?
Our student service team members, so it could be a dean, a social worker, it could be a counselor and social worker, could be all three. It just depends.
How many of these are new since we added staff?
All these groups are,
All of
all the
them.
groups are new, except we did have for transfer students or new students, we did have a social worker that helped those kids transition when they
It wasn't a
first
formal
got transferred.
program, was it? It was more of
No,
a,
that's correct.
yeah, okay.
This is all since post-referendum.
Yeah, part of adding the psychologists and the counselors was it gives them more space and social, gives
Well,
that
aimed
group
at
and then the
reallocating,
deans.
yeah.
So there's more people on that team that are able to allocate time for this. That was part of the discussion around adding
I'm
positions.
assuming we publicize the heck out of this. I mean, people that, the referendum, what'd you get for the referendum?
Yeah, I think we need to do better at that. Yeah. I wrote that down.
I agree with Steve on that.
Because this is time, and I mean, for a group, you got to run it once a week. It's a commitment from our student service staff to do that. And now that we are bigger, it makes it a little easier, but it's still a challenge. It's not easy because you have to be consistently running. Then you got to figure out what classes you're pulling the kids from, because that's also another factor. You don't want to continually pull the kid from first period. 8 weeks in a row, they're missing first period. That's not going to work. So it does get tricky scheduling this and making sure it can also meet the kids' needs, but also not lose sight of their academic needs too and missing class. So it is a challenge, but they are working through it, and we're proud of the work we're doing in this area.
On the next section.
And then just some ideas about our repair conferences. I know this is a question we got earlier. So back in 23, 24, we call our restorative practices repair conferences, and we've branded it in that way. So in 23, 24, that's when we really rolled it out to staff and trained staff in our protocol. And also used even our teachers as a panel in front of the whole staff about showing examples of how teachers have used it and used it successfully in order to get other teachers more involved in it and more comfortable possibly doing a repair conference.
What's a repair conference?
So Steve and Beth get in an argument, and,
Gonna need a heck of a referee.
correct. So now I'm
Lot
gonna
of
bring you,
repair.
and you two are in the same class, and, you know, didn't have to get physical, the argument could be just verbal. And we know you're gonna be in that class for the rest of the year. We can't just pull you from a class. We want you both staying in that class. We wanna repair that relationship and figure out how do we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
So, we rolled it out to our staff in 23-24. We had a big initiative with this in far as using Wednesday mornings and even an institute day. We leveraged teachers that were willing to use repair conferences as a effective tool in their classrooms. And in 24-25, we kind of expanded it out to being more conversation circles. It would be like a whole class being involved in a conversation to set the tone for a classroom, to, you know, have a better environment for kids. And then some of the data I have over on the right with our repair conference, we track that data, see how many we're actually doing. So we do, our deans and our counselors or our social workers would track that and identify how many repair conferences we've had. So in 23-24, you can see where we were at Eau Plaine and Almond. That continued on in 24-25. I will say this year, like even when I looked at the data and pulled it for this, I went down to our deans at Almond, like, what the heck's going on? How are we not? We just haven't had it. It haven't been necessary. Like it's not a formula that you force this to happen. It has to be an incident that happens and kids to be willing to do it. So I don't think it's because it's not a practice that we want to do at Almond. It just hasn't happened at Almond. And who knows what second semester can bring. That's only first semester. So we're pretty happy with that. We hope it continues to grow with our classroom staff. We hope they continue to be more confident in doing that instead of using a student. Of course, student services are happy to do it. That is our job. But we want to empower teachers to also do it in their classrooms with their students. And then this looks familiar if you've looked at panorama data before. That's kind of where those colors come in. And we just wanted to look at some historical data with on track with behavior. So that is small, and I'm sorry I can't see some of those numbers up there. The historical data on the left I can see. So you can see where we were at over time between 23-24 and then the first half of the year here for 25-26. At Eau Plaine, you've seen a steady increase. At Almond, it has been a decrease. I will tell you quite a bit of that is single period absences and tardies to class. Because anytime there's a log entry, that's what triggers this and potentially gets kid off track with behavior. So we're hoping we have a stronger second semester, particularly at Almond. But the numbers aren't terrible with our historical data. I think they're on track and trending. Of course, we want to shoot to get in the 90s, but 85% is a pretty good target to be above.
Okay. Appreciate that, Pat.
Yep, all good.
Stopped?
Oh, maybe
Oh, he did something.
there we go.
Okay, now for something completely different. We're going to talk about student classroom furniture. So discussions about moving from traditional classroom to 21st century classrooms have been ongoing for years. Studies have shown that traditional classroom where the teacher sits in the front of the classroom and there's rows of desks where students are seated is not conducive to today's learning environment, and where it is encouraged for students to collaborate and empowering students to be active in their own learning. So some of the concepts, I'm just going to touch on a few of them. Working in groups, collaborating, flexibility, being able to move furniture around so students can sit together in small groups, larger groups, individually. One of the things that I kind of focused on was appropriate size furniture. If you've looked in our classrooms, we have, not in every classroom, but in a good majority of them, we have the desk chair combination. and it doesn't really work for some of our, athletic students that are a little bit larger. If you think about sitting in one of those seats for an hour or two at a time and having a hard back and a hard seat, it's not really conducive to learning. Some of the things that we talked about in our discussions were, student desks versus tables, chairs versus standing options for desks, teachers' desks, and teacher podiums. And another discussion was wheels versus glides, because sometimes those can be problematic in some classrooms, and sometimes they work better as far as moving students around. So for this year, for ordering furniture, we have money in the budget to outfit about 20 classrooms, 10 at each campus. And for our pilot classrooms, because we're going to initially start out with setting up 2 classrooms at each campus, and one classroom will have chairs and desks, and the other one will have tables and chairs. And they will be set up in the instructional, the instructional teachers' classrooms. And we're gonna pilot them where classrooms can come in and the kids can experience a different classroom, and the teachers can experience teaching in that classroom. And then after they get done with their class, we're going to give them a survey to try to get feedback right away as to, what works well, what's not working well, as far as the different furniture.
How are you selecting the classrooms? If you don't mind?
Well, that will be up to the principals and the assistant principals, but as far as I know, it's going to be kind of open. Some, like science, probably will not work for these classrooms because you need a lab. So some departments might not be able to work with this, but the majority of classrooms, I believe, will.
Are students in the current configuration, are there seats assigned, or do they just come and sit where?
Different. Every teacher kind of has their own approach to that. So I don't think systemically it's the same everywhere.
I'm thinking worst case scenario, kids are pretty mean to each other. Nobody wants to sit with Fifi, and Fifi's sitting all by herself. And I can see could be problems under certain circumstances. I don't know.
Sure.
So the administration met to start the discussion about classroom furniture, and we developed concepts, and there was a slide deck that was developed, and the administrators took that back to their buildings, talked to their lead teachers talked to other teachers, and we did gather some ideas from the teachers as to what they would like to see. And so on the right-hand side is some of their suggestions as to what they would like to see in furniture.
Do you have any picture samples?
Yep. They're coming up. So we started in September. October was just feedback from staff. We reconvened in November to talk about the feedback that we received, kind of brainstormed what kind of furniture we would like to test drive. And we ordered the furniture, which was supposed to come in January, but I just received an email today that it might not come till like February, which is a little disappointing, but we will still have time for teachers to be able to rotate into the classrooms and give us a survey back as to how they felt about the classroom furniture. And then probably the end of March, beginning of April, we'll convene again to make final decisions on what furniture that we will order for the summer for the 20 classrooms. And then over the summer, hopefully it will, we will have those classrooms set up and ready to go before school starts.
Would the classrooms look different depending on the subject? For instance, math class, vertical classrooms, vertical spaces, vertical spaces, would you have different desks in there versus I don't know, pick another subject. Or are we going for a standard classroom here at Warren where everybody's getting the same setup?
We're looking at standardizing.
Standardizing, okay.
Because depending on movement of, like enrollment or something, if, like some departments they have smaller enrollment of students, and we need to move that furniture out to another area. So it's meant to be interchangeable. So, yeah, we're trying to stick to just.
Standard classroom?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So this is some of the furniture that we have suggested, and a few of those, not the one on the lower right, we're not going to put that in classroom, but some of the other ones we're going to put in the classroom. And the black chair that's on the lower part of the screen, that is similar to the chairs that we have here. They are, the material is flexible, so kids can lean back a little bit. It's got a wider seat, it makes it more comfortable. So that's one of the options.
And then the white is the wheels.
Yes, mm-hmm, yes, and that's probably, I know in our business classrooms, we do have chairs similar to that.
The red one would last very long.
The chair on the top right, is it adjustable? Is the tray adjustable? Because you talked about the athletic. I mean, working in healthcare, you have the bariatric, adjustments, but having been 6 foot my entire school life, except for maybe 5 grades, it's horrible to try and get into some of these when you're larger kids, So is that, if we're looking at furniture that accommodates, learning environments, is that going to be adjustable or?
This is one of the chairs that we are not going to get.
Thank you.
It was
I'm
one
done.
of the options,
'Cause
it was
makes
one
me
of the
nervous.
options that we put out there, but it was decided that that probably isn't one of the options. But at the, underneath, there's a book rack.
Yeah,
And
I saw that.
And some of the teachers have suggested or asked for book racks, so
Appreciate
we do
that,
have
but-
some chairs that will have book racks. That they'll
What
have.
about the blue chair that's next to that white desk one?
Okay, so that,
That looks like it could be,
so that's called a ruckus chair.
okay.
The way that this chair works is they can, students can turn around and face the back of the chair, and that, like, back part, they can put a Chromebook on, and they can, work backwards. And apparently, my understanding is kids can sit on that, and it will not flip the chair. So we are gonna,
Sounds like
test drive those.
You want Donovan to try it?
Me and John will do it.
So we have ordered a couple for the classroom for people to try out, but that is the most expensive chair there is. So, if we order some, it'll be limited. There will not be an entire classroom. Plus, that is a larger chair, and it, space-wise, it takes up a lot of area. So you won't have 30 of those chairs in one classroom. It just won't work.
Just for consideration and looking at it, so maybe pessimistically, but are you sure you want something with rollers that's really easily moved around? I mean, you can have races down the hallway. It would seem to me it would be kind of mayhem, but okay.
Yeah, well, we wanted to give the, the teachers and the students the option, so we'll see how it works out. I do know on some of the classrooms that we did allow wheels, that they were happy with that,
Okay.
so.
I wonder about the durability of the lever with the chair lifting. As much as I would appreciate it, as I love to use those, I just worry about that breaking. Because I know a lot of the healthcare arenas get the cheap ones, because healthcare is and they're broken very quickly. So just one of my thoughts about that, but as somebody that would use it regularly, it's usually broken when I want to use it. So I don't know.
And that's
how
something we'll have
durable
to
it
look
is.
at
I'm
before.
assuming there's a weight limit on these things. You know what they can hold or not.
Do
You
I
better
know
not
the
be
weight
speaking
limit
to
on
me.
some?
I'm talking
Are you
me.
speaking to me?
270 pounds of fighting fat right here.
Yeah, I mean, these have been tested over quite a few years, so, from our furniture consultant, these chairs do hold up over time.
I think this is why you pilot. And I think these are the things that will be found out over a course of a year with our kids using it and possibly being kids abusing it, but that's why you pilot, and we may find out one manufacturer or brand is more durable than another. Having lived through some of these flexible furniture stuff for now over 10 years, some things to keep an eye on, and I'm sure your architect can clue you in, but one, the experience of getting these in a timely manner is not uncommon. It's actually very common. Sometimes they come from overseas. Two, servicing. So long-term for our maintenance staff to service these things, you'll need to look into this, but finding part availability, company longevity, when these things break, because they'll break, what's the process to repair? The traditional stuff we know is not conducive to learning, but it also held together pretty strongly. So what's our budget and staff time to ongoing do that? And then I do think there's the standard classroom makes sense, right? Will change, but there is sometimes, and you'll find this out next year, sometimes certain tables or chairs are more conducive for certain subjects. You may find that out in the learning experience, so that's why you pilot. But hopefully or not architect, whoever's from DLM that's helping, they should know the answer to a lot of these things. We have found manufacturers have just disappeared, and there's no one to supply parts. Yeah, all these great walls, I know we're not talking that, but the marker board walls to divide class that everyone loved, when they come off the track and there's no one around to purchase the parts from. So just be cautious, which you will be anyway. So, but I will say, I'm excited in the fact that even though this is stuff, and it's one of my pet peeves is talking about stuff, as we've heard me talk about stoves and this and that are so far removed from students. I know it's necessary, but it also drives me crazy. This stuff, I feel like directly impacts students because they're sitting on the learning experience, the collaboration that can happen from them. So this is actually exciting stuff. I would love to hear what our teachers and students think about this after they've piloted it or halfway through the
Years
year.
of discomfort in school settings.
Well,
I mean,
there's
I can
certain
tell
like
you,
wobble chairs
it's
and others
horrible.
that are meant for kids who have ADHD that sometimes tip over easily. It all sounds good here, but when you live it, it's a different experience. So the process of piloting, I love.
So these are just some of the student desks and basically just one table that we looked at. In the pilot, there'll be 8 different desks and 4 or 5 different chairs. We'll have 6 different tables, and some of them will be, we're getting tables at different sizes. Some will be a little bit wider. One of the requests was just to make sure that a Chromebook and a piece of paper can sit on any given desk, or if it's a table with 2 people, there's enough room for the students. So we're testing out not only tables and desks, but also the sizes and the writing surface. Let's see.
Are any of them adjustable in height?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we're gonna have adjustable desks, and then we also are gonna have like cafe height desks with cafe.
Hallboy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
High tops. Mm-hmm.
So a student, there'd be desks that a student could pick if they want a standing desk for one day
Yes.
or like half of the period and then go back to a regular.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, had teachers look at the various desks. One of the big things is podiums. The teachers really like the idea of having a podium on wheels where they can navigate around the classroom. So every teacher will have the option of getting a desk and a podium. And this is not exactly what the classroom will look at like, but this is a concept. So you see the higher desks on the left hand of the screen, and then more collaboration in the classroom of desks where students can meet in small groups. So it's just kind of a broad concept of what a classroom could look like. We are not at this point ordering any soft seating for the students, just so initially we want to just have the classroom furniture for, for students and not have soft seating at this point.
I appreciate everybody's comments and suggestions and questions throughout the top. I know this is a lot of us giving you updates, but I appreciate your time on
Very
it
helpful.
today.
Thank you.
All right, so that was thorough.
Nicely done, nicely done.
Fabric is always fun too, if we ever get to that point.
What are you,
Oh, I want to be on that committee,
I want to be in that.
for which committee?
the fabric committee.
The fabric picking.
Oh,
Get animal print.
fabric, yeah.
Buckskin.
I saw our teachers wanted blue.
Blue and
Blue.
gold or yellow?
What I appreciated about tonight is almost everything we saw was student-centric, really student-centric, as far as supporting students, supporting the learning process, feedback from our teachers, professional development. Like, it was just,
End user.
it was really good stuff in general to have us provide feedback. It was good for us as a learning experience to hear about all the good work that's being done by our staff at all levels during school, because we're not here to see it. So great discussion tonight. Appreciate it. So at this point, we're going to have two motions to close. The first one being I move to adjourn the committee of the whole and reconvene the regular meeting. It looks like, well, we'll do first and second and then voice vote. So I did the first. Is there a second?
Said second.
I think Pope did. And then any discussion? And if not, it looks like we can do a voice vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then for the adjournment, we're going to bring our meeting to a close. We too are respectful, resilient, engaged now and always. Go Blue Devils.
Devils.
We need a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The time is 8:16 p.m. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.